Hey Wargamers, this morning Games Workshop finally released a new FAQ for Psychic Awakening the Greater Good, and of course that means some clarifications on some pretty important Tau rules. So let's take a look and see what's in this FAQ. Alright, so right off the bat we have the inclusion of points for Commander Shadowsun. Fantastic. That's important. They actually missed that on the original printing. Seems to be a little bit of a trend with the Psychic Awakening books is forgetting to put points in for notable characters. On page 36, Servants of the Greater Good, add the following to the end of the first paragraph. No unit can have more than one prototype weapon system, and all prototype weapon systems in your army must be different. Now, this is probably the most important part of the FAQ for Tau. They got it out of the way right off the bat, and it's not necessarily a good clarification for us. Basically what this means is that, yeah, you can take multiple prototype weapons, and we'll get to exactly why that is later on. But if you do so, you cannot take any in duplicate, and you cannot give more than one prototype weapon to any given unit. This is a big deal because we have been, well, at least I have been very excited about using Crisis Suit teams with multiple prototype weapons, namely stabilizing jets and reactive countermeasures. That allows them to reroll ones to hit and wound, and also allows them to ignore -1, -2 on one of their Iridium suits. So a pretty big combo there that really makes Crisis Suits function very well and have a good amount of durability to them. Now you have to pick or choose. Granted, you could take multiple Crisis Suit units and, give one to Unit A and one to Unit B and still be okay, but it also means that you can't take multiple Crisis Suit units with stabilizer jets. And that's disappointing. Expected, but a little disappointing, to be honest, because we really were seeing Crisis Suits kind of come into their own, having a really well-defined niche at that point, and this undermines that a little bit. They still have a lot of improvements with this codex. Certainly with the veteran cadre, they are going to be much better than they were before. But not being able to take multiple prototype weapons on your Crisis Suit teams in particular is going to make them less useful than they were a week ago, using rules as written. Yeah, moving on. It's an important change that they clarified, but it does have some important changes or important implications for how you use your suit. Really, I think you're probably going to see more stabilizing jets than reactive countermeasures, just because stabilizing jets allow you to, have a benefit whenever, whereas reactive countermeasures really only comes into play when you are out of drones or taking small arms fire, that sort of thing. So I think probably taking the boost to hit and wound is probably going to be better. But yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see how that shakes out a little bit. Tau Empire Stratagems, Modulated Weaponry. Change the first sentence to read, use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Riptide, Ghostkeel, or vehicle model other than a Titanic model from your army is chosen to shoot with. This is a deviation from both the codex and the preview that they did of this. It's kind of funny that it made it this far before they decided to say anything about it. But so instead of just being any unit that has a random number of shots, they are specifying it has to be a Riptide, Ghostkeel, or vehicle. It means it can't be a YVahra. It means it cannot be a commander. So everybody that was excited about bringing their YVahras even at 400 plus points, using modulated weaponry, I'm sorry. It's time to play taps for your YVahras. They have to stay back on the shelf because, unfortunately, you can't use modulated weaponry on them anymore, which is really too bad. Page 47, Cyclic Ion Blaster Overcharge ability. Change this weapon's overcharge profile ability to read. If you roll one or more hit rolls of 1, the bearer's unit suffers a mortal wound after all this weapon's shots have been resolved. This is different than the Greater Good printed version because that had mortal wounds taken on each roll of a 1, as opposed to one or more hits of 1. So this is in line with the codex and basically undoes unintentional change that they put into the Greater Good. I'm glad that they did this. Having Cyclic Ion Blasters deal a mortal wound for every single roll of a 1 made accounting a little bit easier because you didn't have to partition based on weapon, but it also made them a lot worse. So this is a good change in terms of total damage output and durability. All right, page 50, Forces of the Enclaves. All Farsight Enclaves units in the Farsight Enclaves detachment, that is, any detachment that only includes Farsight Enclaves units, gain the aggressive footing ability. Yeah, so if you are playing Farsight and have a Farsight detachment, you get this ability. That's a good clarification. I didn't think that was totally unclear, but I'm glad that they did clarify that. All right, page 51, Farsight Enclave Stratagems, Veteran Cadre. Change the third sentence to read, models in that unit, excluding drones, have a weapon skill characteristic of 4+, and a ballistic skill characteristic of 3+. Now, I think this is an important change because, of course, having gun drones hit on 4s would make them very, very cost efficient and would really, really beg people just to take blobs of gun drones with their crisis suits, which would be fine. It just would be a really, probably an uneven or unfairly costed unit at that point. So I see why they made this clarification, but this clarification also causes some issues. So let me read the original printing, right? It says, use this stratagem before the battle. Select one XVA Crisis Battlesuit unit from your army that contains 3 models for 1 command point, or one XVA Crisis Battlesuit unit from your army that contains 4 or more models for 2 command points. And then they changed the next part to be what we just talked about. So it clarifies that models in that unit, excluding drones, gain the benefit, but it doesn't say anything about the cost. Right, so they didn't specify now that drones are not included in the number of models in that unit, but they are for some reason when it comes to receiving the benefit. So, I mean, I've always read this as being, containing 3 or more crisis suit models, not 3 or more models, period. Even though, everybody knows how drones work, right? They're a separate unit once you put them on the table. But before that, before the battle starts, when you use this stratagem, they're 1 unit. So, if you take 3 crisis suits and 1 shield drone, does that mean that you have to pay 2 command points? And I don't think you do. I think that's pretty clearly the intent of this stratagem, is to be that you would only pay 1 command point. But the fact that they clarify drones here for the part with the benefit, not for the cost, is confusing to me because of that. So I think it's a pretty clear rules as intended argument that the drones don't count for the cost of the stratagem, but that should be in this FAQ. If they're going to change the wording in the second part of the stratagem, they should change it in the first part too. Page 52, Seismic Fibrillator node. Change the relic to read once per battle. At the start of your opponent's turn, you can choose to activate this relic. If you do until the end of the turn when the model starts or ends a move, excluding pile-in or consolidation moves within 6 inches of a model with this relic, roll 1d6. On a 1, that model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound. This is good because it kind of reins in the total number of possible rolls you would have for an opponent being subject to this. But overall, yeah, I would I still wouldn't take this. It basically means you could probably get, 2 rolls off of a single model. But, it's good that they clarified that. Now, okay, back down here to the FAQs. Does a rule that allows you to take a second signature system from Codex Tau Empire allow you to instead take a second prototype weapon? Yes. So you can take multiple prototype weapon systems. This is something that they really should... That really did need to be clarified. I'm glad that they did. So you can take reactive countermeasures. You can take stabilizing jets. But you cannot take them on the same unit is the key takeaway there. You can take multiples, but you can't take them on the same unit. And you cannot take any duplicates. Do reactive countermeasures replace the model's air-bursting fragmentation projector? No. The ability gained is in addition to the weapon, which can be fired normally. Okay, good. I didn't think that was a question. It never said that it replaced it, that it just was if you had that, then you had this also. Good that, if people were confused on that, good that they clarified, but I wasn't one of those people. Do accelerated photon grenades replace the model's photon grenades? No. The ability gained is in addition to the weapon, which can be fired normally. So you can fire if you had a model of, or if you had a unit, you could use your accelerated photon grenades in one phase and use your normal photon grenades in another phase, something like that. It's not mutually exclusive. You could use both, which is nice. Does a cross-link stabilizer jest prototype weapon system apply to all models in the unit or just one? All models. Good. Yeah. Again, I didn't think that was a question, but I'm glad that they clarified it. How does the hybridized weaponry Tenant apply to pulse blasters? Does it add 4 inches to the maximum range of the weapon, or does it add 4 inches to all the profiles? It adds 4 inches to maximum range of the weapon. So it increases long range by 19. I think this is kind of I think that's kind of a BS answer. You have different, it doesn't really function like one weapon with one range, right? It really functions like you have 3 different weapons and you pick the profile that you want to use. So I think it should boost all of them by 4 inches. But I totally see the logic. I see the rationale behind it only applying to long range. But that's useless to pulse blasters, basically. So, yeah. All right. I wasn't going to take that anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But, I would have preferred it to not be that way. I'd prefer it to be the other way around. Does the upgun Tenant also improve armor penetration characteristics of high output burst cannon and long barrel burst cannons? No, it does not, because those are not burst cannons. Those are distinctly different things. Are the hit roll modifiers from accelerated photon grenades cumulative with those from photon grenades? Yes, because again, they are different. If a model with the aggressive footing ability shoots at a unit within 12 inches that has 0 marker light counters, does it treat that unit as having 1 marker light counter instead? Yes. I think that's I'm not going to say obvious, but pretty close. The Onager Gauntlet and Fusion Blasters melee have slightly different abilities than those printed in the Codex. Is this on purpose? Yes, when wielded by the heroes of the 8, use the slightly improved abilities for these weapons. Continue to use their rules as printed in the Codex if they are equipped on another character. Boo. Boo, they should. This is problematic, right? If the 8 have different versions of the weapon, they should be called something else. They should be called, so-and-so's Onager Gauntlet or so-and-so's Fusion Blades. I don't remember who has each of those, I'm sorry. But they shouldn't be just the same word with a different profile. That's confusing. That causes issues. What if you're taking, a Farsight Enclave's commander with Fusion Blades? I guess, it has. That's the only place where this rule would apply because Fusion Blades are sept locked. But, if you're taking a commander with Fusion Blades that they have to use the worst profile, that's not cool. I'm not going to do that. I really like the new profile. The new profile is awesome. The old profile is still, good, but definitely not as good as the new one. So that's disappointing. I guess it gives you some reason to take the 8. Because, as we've talked about before, there's not really much benefit in actually taking the 8 as they stand now, given that you can take 6 commanders that you outfit the way you'd like in a normal Farsight detachment or its normal Farsight army. You can do that. So why would you take 8 that are suboptimally equipped? Granted, you could get more potentially. You could take the 8 as one detachment and then other commanders in other detachments, but I digress. This is a good clarification. Totally not obvious. Good thing that they put this in here, but I don't like that at all. Like I said, they should have renamed the weapons if that's what they wanted to do. All right. So one thing that they didn't clarify in here, I think they hit a lot of the big main points. But one thing that they didn't touch on was whether or not the Master of War ability on Shadow Sun would apply to different septs if she was in a detachment for a different sept. This wasn't really a question. This is a question, but rules as written, it's very clear that that's not the case, but it doesn't really make sense that that's the case. Why would you do that? It really, undermines her the whole point of bringing her in a different detachment, why would you? Yeah. So, yeah, I wish they would have talked about that here. Either saying, yeah, that's exactly what we mean, or no, that's not what we mean. Either way, clarifying it would be useful. The fact that they didn't clarify it suggests that they think it's really obvious that that's how it works, and so we shouldn't get our hopes up for ever seeing her being able to apply her Master of War ability to a Borkhand detachment or a Dalith detachment or whatever you want. If she's hanging out with somebody else, they do not get her Master of War ability, which is bad. It's really disappointing. So, yeah, that's the one thing I wish they would have talked about in here that they didn't talk about is Shao Tsun's Master of War ability. But otherwise, I think they made a lot of good clarifications. Again, the biggest thing is that you can take multiple prototype weapons, but not in the same unit and not in duplicate. Those are the biggest things, I think, in this FAQ. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Does this change how you're going to build your list? Does it not make a difference? Either way, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching and happy wargaming.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over on Patreon. These are the people that really help drive the channel and make things happen. So special thanks to Shifty, Dallas Ellis, Jim Bob, Scott Heater, Nick Steele, Tao Oswald, Jackson, Stephen Cohen, Eric Jackson, Michael Byrne, Zealous Brimstone, Jared Egler, and Chris Kessler.